This conference will now be recorded.
Any details? This is gonna be questions. I'm gonna need your help on that because you put
But
it.
they can't make any, they can't vote on anything.
Yeah.
No, nobody.
We'll be running
Do
on.
they have to tell us yes or no? Can one person tell us?
We'll see.
We ready? Okay, it is now 10 o'clock and I'm going to call this town council budget workshop in order. Basically, we're going to go into the business of the 2022 to 2023 municipal budget.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council. Hope everyone's doing well today. If you look on page 3 of the booklet that we gave you, that's the budget. There's been a couple of little changes. We've got some new fees that are going to require a public hearing. We want to change some of the fees, and we've put some new fees in there for the building and planning, change for the building and planning. We've moved our American Rescue Funds. So basically, this is the budget that we put together based on the words that you've heard. And we understand we can't vote on anything today that, the goal here is to answer any specific questions that you might have. But our goal is to get a balanced budget. And we also understand in January that when we relook at this, there's going to be changes to the budget because we feel that we're probably, as has happened in the last couple of years, we're going to find that we've got more money than we thought we would have.
Closer to the end.
And
My question, not to put the horse before the carriage or the carriage before the horse, is the state is saying right now that they may not be able to approve their budget in the amount of time. So we may have a continuing resolution on funds. Is that going to hold up anything that we're doing?
No, sir.
Because we're not expecting any money from them. Any money we get from them will just be as a result of their budget. And we don't have that budgeted on our
Yes.
side.
That's same as when the federal budget, federal government does the same thing. It doesn't affect what we're doing because
Okay, thank
our
you.
funds come from different sources.
Mr. Mayor, I had made a question about some of the costs that were costs and revenue that were incorporated into the peer information. One of which was the fee for fishing, but I don't see that in the new package either. Are we sticking with the $9.50 a day like our neighbors? Or what
I
are we
haven't
charging?
done anything about the fishing. If you look on the fee schedule, there's a note that just says when the pier is not open, so the fees have not been set yet.
Okay,
I
but-
believe it's right at the bottom of the first page, just above the yellow.
Yeah, but when we go to the enterprise fund, we've added $70,000 in fishing fees for the pier.
It's in there just because I just forgot to take it out, but it's based on prior years. If you don't want those fees, we can obviously take them out.
Well, but it should be related to something relevant. I mean, if it's $9.50 a day, which is what I found that our neighbors are doing, if it's $9.50 a day times however many days the pier is going to be open, because it's only going to be 9 months, it's not a full 12 months. At most, it's going to be 9 months open for fishing. But, if I do the math at $70,000, that's like 28 fishermen every day of every week of every month the pier's open. Is that, what we want in that? I mean, I don't know. It's just something that, I had identified that, we've been charging a fee for fishing. I don't know what we've charged. All I was able to find was what Garden City charges, what Myrtle Beach charges, and they're all about $9.50 a day. Kids are free or something. Kids under 12 are free. So I just wondered if we're revising our fee schedule, why that wouldn't be here since we're anticipating revenue from those fees.
totally because I forgot. And I can take it out of the pier and revenue. It's no problem. If you don't want to charge admissions, that's also in there. All I did was take 3 months worth of revenue from the
All
past.
right, well,
I
I'm
take it
I'm
out.
not saying take it out.
Well, I can do that.
Oh,
You
I'm
still
not-
have to
Yeah.
decide whether you want admissions.
Oh.
I'm not saying take it out. I just asked the question if the $70,000 was reasonable for fishing license or fishing fee revenue for a 9-month pier. And now you're telling me that's only 3 months revenue. Okay, that I'm fine leaving something in there. I just asked if that was the right number.
No, I don't.
Just to get.
I mean, it's a good guess, but I didn't you hadn't answered the original question that said it was only 3 months. You said that's based on what last year.
2015.
Okay, well,
You know, I've gone out to several of these piers and I think you'll find that once you're open for fishing, 28 fishermen a day is probably a low number because they come and go and even on Sundays with your church days, I mean, I went down to Garden City just to look. They had a lot more than 28 fishermen out there. And,
yeah,
it's a
and
family
that's
event.
fine. I mean, we certainly want something in there. I was just asking if that was a reasonable number, and if anything, it's a low number, so that's fine. That's fine.
My
But-
guess is when you do this, when here gets open, you're gonna have to come up with all the fees for the rent, for the kiosks, for everything. So that's why I just left it. And yes, I did put a placeholder in the budget, but
Yeah.
it's not a big enough number to make a difference.
Well,
at this
because the
point.
other thing was the, in this Rev 1, you didn't fix the interest on the enterprise fund to be 9,000. Because that's what was in the details, 8 for the sanitation fund and 1,000 for the pier fund.
I thought I fixed that, okay. It's the interest, okay. Well, there I go. It's the same number in total, it's just flip flop. I can fix it. I guess I keep forgetting.
But the other questions I have on, and I got to the first page. I didn't get to any of the detail to understand where anything came from. But virtually 2/3 of all of the line items in the consolidated budget have changed. 13 line items have remained the same out of the 31 that you could count here.
From which budget? From the one we had the workshop on or the one I sent out after that? Because I sent another one out.
I'm comparing this to this.
Okay, those are totally different. Because I moved American
Yeah,
Rescue
this-
money.
Yeah, well, this doesn't more than move American Rescue. This one I got last night when Bill dropped it off.
Mhm,
This is what we got at the workshop.
correct, they're totally different.
So, yeah, they're totally different. So,
Well, if you look at,
well, I just need time to reconcile, like I was doing, to try to reconcile all of the information presented here and the gaps that I noted in the 3 different emails I sent. And again, it's just education for me, but the way I look at it is not lining up in some categories. But now that there's all this extra detail, I could probably do a better job of, lining them up, but I need more than, the 4 hours I've been awake today to get this done.
well, if you look at page 1 and page 2 of the booklet, it'll tell you everything that we changed. Or 90% of what we changed, 1 and 2. Some have repeated on some of the pages and some are not, but those are the things that I changed. For the most part. Except for the fees are not on there because the fees are in the fee schedule.
One other question, and Chief Hoffman, this might be for you, that I had. In the original details, it said we were deferring a police vehicle, but in the hospitality tax details, it showed a police vehicle, so that we're deferring 1 of 2. Is that correct?
The original request was for 3 if we funded the police training officer, but that is deferred. So that was the first vehicle for that officer as well. We normally had two, but council already funded one in advance because of the motor vehicle, which leaves
Right.
one vehicle as part of capital replacement. Does that make sense?
Hospitality.
Hospitality.
Yeah, okay.
So with the
So-
three, you dropped the two, you guys funded one in the current budget, so that would leave one remaining capital replacement vehicle for hospitality.
That's when we had to do, because they had that wreck and we had the opportunity to get a vehicle.
So the 61.5 in police expenses out of ATAX, we've got 61.5 in expenses and 17 in hospitality. So 78.5 in police expenses out of ATAX and hospitality. And then we've got, where's the cap? The vehicle in the building, we've got 58.4 for one vehicle, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Let's talk about this.
Mhm. Right, that's hospitality.
Any other questions? Diana, you have anything you want to talk to us about?
I need to know what to do about the fees, because I can't go forward with the public hearing until I know what you want to do with the fees.
Mr. Mayor. Not that it would make hardly any difference, but I know the budget will end up getting published. And I think our merchandise probably, T-shirts and whatnot, it doesn't make hardly any difference if you raise them $2 or $3 to the budget. But if you're gonna publish this and then you want to raise them, because they're probably gonna be more expensive than they have been in the past. I'm just saying $2 or $3 each. Raise the price of them, and because they're real reasonable the way they are. So, but that's, like I say, it's a small thing. For the fees.
I don't know, I have to get with Rob and see how much we pay, but what about the convenience fees for people buying and by getting licenses? I mean, that's gonna be a big nut for a lot of people. I know, I don't like paying them when I go into Horry County with the big sign, it says $25.
Convenient fee?
The convenience fee,
If
yeah.
you use your credit card.
Yeah.
Use your credit
card. Yeah.
Mhm. Like a gas station.
Yeah.
Take it out?
We don't, Myrtle Beach doesn't charge it, most of the other municipalities don't charge it, the county is the one that charges it here. It's my understanding, unless they put it in this year, but.
Yeah, most vendors add it into their cost.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, if we go up on our fees, then are we not covering some of that anyway?
Right.
So my people have to hear the thing at the front desk when people start about paying convenience fees, so.
Well, the credit card is charging us a fee, right?
You can eat.
I think we're charging them the same.
Yeah. Most people that
Well, we
have
could up it, right.
negotiated their merchant agreement with credit card companies have either, depending on what their volume is, have either negotiated that fee lower, or they just build it in an expense of doing business and, it's in your price that you pay. You don't have an additional adder at the end. And, like a lot of the restaurants around here, you've already got 3 different line items for taxes and fees. They don't want to see another one just because you're using a credit card. So they'll build it into their financial model as a cost of doing business.
Mr. Mayor. Diane, on the fees and stuff that we charge in town for everything, why don't we just come up with an average for all of them, make them all go up? Just make them all a percentage and all of them increase, for like a cost of living increase or a cost of increase overall, instead of picking and choosing. If somebody gets a building permit and it's $200 or $225, what's the difference?
I think what we, and correct me if I'm wrong here, what we did is we looked at what other people are charging. And, and in some of the rules, you want to make sure that you're actually getting what you're paying out.
Right.
And so we're trying to find a balance, and some of them, that might need to go up $2 to reach that peak, and others might need to go up $6 to reach that peak. And so by doing it the way we do it, you kind of keep a fair rollover. That's,
And
You guys
if you look
speaking?
at our fees.
You guys
only
speaking to the
thing-
microphone.
If I may, if you look at our fees that we're recommending go up, it does not affect the residents of the town. It is for new construction only. So, but they do go up, and they're going up based on the surrounding municipalities and the counties, so it's kind of an average. It's also based on the International Code Council recommendations. But they are going, the average is based on the square footage. And what we get a lot in our office is, I was giving an example to some of staff. We had a 5,500 square foot house come in less than a month ago, and they valued that house at $250,000. Well, of course, we don't do that. We have we have a scale that we go through, but instead of arguing with the contractor or trying to explain why the values went up, we go by the square footage. But the request that we're looking at is just for new residential and new commercial. Everything else would stay the same. So if someone wants to build a porch on their home on 6th Avenue, they get the same fees as they have now. But it does go up. And I just would like to put my 2 cents worth in. With that merchant's fee, generally, the contractors won't blink if it goes up. They understand, and we've been telling them that it's going to go up. This hasn't went up since 2012. So they expect an increase.
Yeah.
But with the merchant fee on top of that, that is a little excessive, in my opinion. But that's all I have, unless you got a question, but I just wanted to kind of
That's why I wanted
clarify.
to clarify what.
But this one of your fees went down from 27.5 cents to 25 cents.
The commercial.
Yeah.
It did, and that was based on the surrounding municipalities and the ICC charts that were
And
given.
that's just for plan review. That's not.
That's
for the-
exactly right. That's not the
Okay.
actual fee.
Okay. So all the other things that's here, but other than what's highlighted, is what it's currently in our ordinance. Not only for yours, but
Only changes the highlights, right?
yeah.
That's right. And the red are to be, we're going to eliminate, because we don't use those anyway. We don't allow for mobile homes in town.
Right.
So a lot of that just needs to go away. And they, finance department wanted to do a comprehensive fee schedule, which I think is a great idea, because it took me at least 45 minutes to find all of our fees. So I know it's taken the general public a lot longer than that. So I think that's a great idea.
Well, and that's a good idea, because we're building into chapter 12 that the clerk has to maintain a fee schedule that identifies what all the event fees and permits are. So,
And if you
That's
look at
all
Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle Beach, and Horry County, they have just like this, a detailed fee schedule, and it's online. So if you want to know how much it's going to cost anyone, they just go online and calculate it. So it does work.
yeah.
Very well.
Good, good.
Thank you.
That's also.
Are there any other questions?
And also, so it's
Well,
already written
I
out.
just need to have time to absorb the additional details here into what I try to reconcile. So, I mean, there's still a few gaps that I had communicated previously that I didn't understand where the additional funding comes from. I'm assuming the additional detail here will tell me that. So,
Is there a way we can just set up a meeting and have you, me, and Diane sit down and go through everything?
yeah, I mean, like we did last year, yeah, because I'm sure once we get into the details, it's probably just, more of an education thing and understanding thing where things come from, because, I try to set it up such that here's everything that goes in and out of this fund and in and out of this fund, and then it's all consolidated over and into this fund. And sometimes I just don't understand where the difference in the inter-fund transfers comes from.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, we're showing fund transfers of $1,092,450. And from the previous budget, granted, it's different, but from what we had in the information provided, I could only identify $431,000 worth of transfers. So I'm hoping, I'm hoping, with this, and like I said, I
If you give
didn't
us
have time to go through it.
2 days and
but-
2 times, so you got a couple of hours, we'll make it work.
Well, I mean, if we look at early next week, give me, the next couple days in the weekend to absorb this into my way of thinking,
Yes.
because it's just how I interpret it. I'm not saying what we have is wrong. It's just the way I interpret it to understand what we're doing, because I need to understand what we're doing before I sign on the dotted line.
Amen.
So I just need a couple days to absorb what additions we have here to see if the way I view it is reconciled. And that's why I just wanted to check with Chief Hoffman to make sure we're still talking. We are purchasing one additional vehicle, because it seemed to conflict that this said we deferred a vehicle and this says we're buying a vehicle.
So do you want to set that date and time now so that we know?
No, let her read it. When she's ready, we'll do it.
Yeah, I would say probably sometime Monday would probably work.
Yeah, what Monday's gonna.
I don't know what Mondays are, but
We don't have off days, but you give us the time, we'll make it work. And the only other thing is, we are recommended that we take out the dog license fee. That's in there. One of you already know that, so.
Yes, silly.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I noticed on here, the police department has fees for alarms, but the fire department doesn't. Is that correct? Because on here, it's got in yellow, free for 2 calls, false alarms, and then you're charging.
I saw something on fire.
It's on fire.
Yeah, it's on
Here.
both of them.
I know, I'm just saying, but I didn't realize police does and fire department doesn't. And
That's what we're
I
doing.
thought both of them were, and I didn't know that.
because this is what we just built into chapter 8.
There's the, Paul, there's the false alarm fee.
Yeah, I know, I saw it, I'm just saying, I just was shocked, the police department's been charging and the fire department hasn't been charging.
That's correct.
We're fixing that.
Yeah,
And that it should be fixed.
We told Rob if he wanted the new truck, he had.
That's right.
And so he's looking.
All right, well, for me, the biggest piece is what you want to do with the American Rescue money, because that is a big piece of this budget.
I'm still saying that we should keep that for our buildings, because we know
Yes.
it's coming. And we don't want to go into debt if we keep it for buildings. I mean, no matter what happens, that's a couple of years to get it all done. So if we have an emergency with the pier or something and all our extra resources aren't enough, that's the second thing. And I know there was a question about ride to monies. We are still waiting on that. We sent out, as I told you, they came around and they called us in and they said, oh, it's 30,000 and you'll get 700,000. And then all the managers were going through it. We found, 30 million, we're finding 65 million, which would double that. And so, but there's a court case going on. You're not gonna believe this. Some contractor thinks he deserves more money than he's getting. And so they're fighting that. But it's saying that when that's done, then they're gonna know what, if any, will come to us. And we did send them a list of different types of projects but the bottom line is, once we get it, it'll go to our general fund, and we can do whatever we want with it, but as long as it's buildings or roads, or even repair, I mean, it's, that's the only rule, it's gotta be something that benefits itself. I mean, so as soon as we know, they put us on a hold while this court case is going on. The last time, about 2 months ago, there was a meeting and I asked about it. one of those regional things, and they're still working it. But as soon as we know, I don't want to put something in there because I really don't know what we're gonna get, don't know when we're gonna get it, and don't know if we're gonna get it with this forecast. So
What are we budgeting about the difference in the COLA raises and the merit program?
We still only have 3% in there.
I've asked them to look at the 5% and also the 8%. And those are big numbers.
They're huge numbers.
Those are big numbers to create. I mean, it's true.
To do 7%, we need $300,000. To do 8%, we need $340,000, and the current 3% is 127, and that's general fund. Then you also have to do sanitation.
And how are you about keeping the American Rescue where it is? Do you think that there's a better place that we should be investing that right now?
Well, I have, for this exercise, moved it to capital projects fund because I believe that if you just absorb it into general fund, you're going to use it for normal operations. And in a year from now, you're going to be $2 million you got to find. Prudently, I don't
Right.
think that's a good idea, but
Yeah,
it's up to you.
That's why we said we got to leave it.
I'd rather put it where it needs to be or out of the picture, and then you can use it for what you want in the next 3 years or 4 years. But if you mix it in general fund, which is where I had it, I admit, it was just gonna be used for salaries and
Yeah.
lights and power, and you would have to fill that hole in 2 years. Or 3 years.
That's our biggest thing right now is salary. I mean, that's the biggest cost of the town.
Well, in the process of doing this budget, is there, I mean, we're trying to keep things at a level pace. Is there any, in each department, is there any that we can do without? I mean, and evaluate each department a little bit and look at it. I know we did it for COVID,
Yeah.
and we're not in COVID time, but
And that's kind of what we've done, sir, because that's why we're saying we put a lot of things I've asked for on hold to January, because then we're gonna know what we have. And so we've done that. These guys have been doing bare bones for a long time. You know, and we have issues because of that. But, you know, they're working hard. I don't mind them. I've already asked them, and that's where we got some of those numbers that we took away. You know, if you don't need it, you know, get rid of it. And we've done that on some of the stuff. And of course, one of them we're changing, the loader, or what do you call your truck?
Bucket truck.
The bucket truck. That's more of a life safety issue, and it's coming out of capital, so it's not gonna hurt the general fund at all. So, you know, life safety, I don't want to mess with, because if someone falls out, I would never forgive them for it.
Well, I have to share comment that Mr. Tinkin had made to me. Because I was saying, you know, we should consider, you know, putting the bucket truck back in, because that's a critical safety issue at this point to use it. And he said, well, you know, maybe we need the evaluation before we add it back in the budget. We should do the evaluation of how often is it used and what would be the associated expense of a rental. You know, I just want to share his comment.
Could you get us some information on that?
Yeah, the truck passes its safety inspection. It's inspected once a year. The one we have is a 1997
Right.
Ford. And when we inspect the ladder truck for the fire department, the aerial ladder truck, the same company inspects our bucket truck for, you know, they X-ray the metal, make sure there's no stress cracks or anything like that. So as I said, it can be taken out of the budget and done next year. However, every year you keep that piece of equipment, it's more maintenance, it's
Right.
more of an expense, and it's less like any other piece of equipment, and it's less of a value asset.
How often do you use that in a year? Do you know? I mean,
We use it several times a week, I would say, throughout the whole year, from putting up Christmas lights on Highway 17 and all over town, trimming palm trees, various things, changing light
Right,
bulbs.
so it's not a random use twice a year kind of thing.
No, it's used
Okay.
a lot more than most people would think it's used.
couple of times.
Okay.
You know, fire department borrows it sometimes when they want to do some maintenance or cleaning up high in the firehouse. You know, it's pretty well
You know,
often used. To rent it would be prohibitive, I think.
Right, okay, all right.
They'll
Police
charge-
department's probably gonna be requesting access to it, because we're gonna be adding 30 more pole cameras, and they already help us
Yeah.
out.
No,
We're probably gonna see an increased use of the bucket truck
Okay.
when these 30 more
Yeah,
cameras are added.
it's very well used and it's been
Well,
good.
I was in favor of moving it into, and especially if we have the AP funds, which are designated capital, vehicles capital as well, right? So, I mean, if we can use a very small piece, like what is that, 1% of those funds for replacing that vehicle, I think it's time we do that, but
Yeah, it's just.
that was just my opinion.
The bucket truck is one of those, like, we have some equipment that you can pretty much count on, like a pickup truck every 10 years or so, 12 years, depending how it's used, trash trucks. You kind of have a predictable replacement cycle on those types of equipment. We have some pieces of equipment that we kind of have in our mind, we'll replace them when we get there. Like the mosquito truck we had for 20 some odd years.
Right.
The bucket truck we've had for 20 some odd years. And then as you realize you're getting close to that point, that's when you start scheduling that to be replaced.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we've thought about it over the last 5 or 6 years, and this is the year we've said this needs to go into the budget now. So it wasn't just a whim. It's been thought about many times.
Okay.
All right, I have something that maybe will help clear the air here. If you all go to page 22 in the present I gave you. This is what we call the capital replacement plan. It's capital replacement fund. It's part of general fund. 3 mills every month that we collect from the residents or from everybody for taxes goes into this fund. And it's approximately $200,000 a year that goes in the fund. And what we use this for is for vehicles and any other equipment that's going to have a life of over 5 years. So what this is showing you in the very last column is that under 2022 to 23, it's showing you the, 7 things that are there for 409,000. That's what we're going to spend this year out of capital replacement, and the bucket truck has been added into there when we made the decision the last couple days. So right now we have $802,000 in there. I believe we'll have $822,000 at the end of the year. We're going to use some of that money this year to pay for the equipment for the new building, because that's a viable use. We may use it for some of the money that, for some of the 2 pieces of equipment that the IT people are wanting to give us, which are pretty extensively costly. So we would end up, this is what we'll take this out of, and so we would end up with a balance at this point of $638,000. What this is used for is when we go to buy the next fire truck, whatever year that's going to be. Normally what happens is there isn't enough money in here to buy a whole fire truck and still have money for vehicles and everything else we need. So we pay half of it out of hospitality and half of it out of this. So I never want to deplete this fund if I were you.
Right.
It used to have a lot more that went in it, but 3 mills we seem to be holding okay. And I do have it scheduled out somewhere for whatever year, waiting for somebody to tell me when the fire truck's going to be replaced and how much it'll cost. But there should be enough to do that with putting in $200,000 a year.
Well, but when we sell these vehicles, we got the insurance proceeds or whatever from Officer Dale's accident and stuff. Does that money go into this fund?
If it's something that came out of this, like Officer Dale's money went back into hospitality because that's where it was paid for. So wherever it's paid for from, we would put the money back into this. So when he sells the bucket truck or any of these things here, that money will go back into this fund.
Okay.
I mean, we try to track it as best we can to keep up with it. So it's always, there's more going in than I probably show because we just don't know. So this is the worst guess, I think, is what we would say.
Okay.
So that's what the capital replacement is, part of general fund. The good and bad part about that is it messes up when you look at capital at general fund, but it also increases your cash balance available in general fund, which is something that we need to be conscious of, which is why we leave it in there. Otherwise, it could get moved to the capital replacement fund too, but you're going to have everything in capital replacement. But that's how that works. So rather than take it out of American Rescue, since we are already putting this money aside, my opinion would be to take the normal things we take out of this and use American Rescue money for things that are a one-time deal, because you're never going to get that again, probably.
Yeah.
That's my thought, but it's totally up to you. Well, we could get another one, who knows? But I mean, that's how this works with capital replacement, which is always something that is different. And then police cars don't come out of it. Police and fire don't normally come out of this, they come out of hospitality. Because our hospitality ordinance is a little bit different than a lot of other people's, but one of the main things it's used for is capital items for police and fire, which was why that fund, saved up the money, and that firehouse was built with cash. So that was why we can either do a police station, part of it out of that, some of it out of American Rescue, but if we save that money, it's also our back bill fill for the pier. We don't know how much more the pier is going to cost than we know now. Anything's possible. So leaving as much money as we can in hospitality is your insurance, right? Which is why I have not tapped it as much as I could. But you can free to do that once the pier is up and running. But that's just my conservative nature, which you all know is probably too conservative, but.
Have you done any estimation about the funds that come from the pier? Basic, just a kind of a guess.
The funds that we're going to collect on the pier?
Yeah, different-
I don't know because I don't know all the pieces.
Yeah, until
Let
we
me just
know.
Fill in the pieces by basic averages. or something.
And we have
We know that the assessed value they said for the building would be about $45 a square foot. And so that, hopefully that's something that we'll get to do, because the committee will be recommending these types of who they think should go in there and everything. I'm not sure they will take the negotiation, which is up to y'all, will probably come to us to make sure we can get as much as we possibly can. Because, you know, we definitely want to be able to pay our bills and stuff. I mean, so.
Well, Michael, I think if you look at, assuming the pier will be open for 9 months, assuming that we have entered into the leases and that the leaseholders will take possession of the buildings and start paying their leases. For example, we know 11.5 or 11.250 is what Bill Howard's going to pay. So if you take that per month for 9 months and you say, we're going to net $45 a square foot for about 4,900 square foot of the buildings. Right now, we don't really know what kiosks are going to get, you know, in the malls and stuff. They have different things. So if we don't consider that revenue, it's kind of offset with the assumption you're going to get a full 45 for the other buildings. And you say that over 9 months plus the $70,000 in fishing fees, you come up with a pier revenue generated in the 9 months of this budget year of $337,266. Opposed to what had been, and again, I haven't seen the details, but had been $225,000. So there are assumptions built in there.
I know she had the kiosks and all that,
And I guess.
plugging in, that we're gonna have, let's say, 10 kiosks, an average of whatever
We're gonna
amount.
have a bond to pay back.
Yeah. And I
And
guess
we're
the
also
question-
gonna have other expenses that
Yeah,
are.
but I guess the question would be is, you know, if the restaurant stays open 12 months, if the other buildings, you know, I know we've got a season, but if after the season, we've got the visitors and they can stay open, that's still.
Well, but it's still only open 9 months. Between October
Oh, I'm
and
thinking-
June,
you're right, I'm
it's still
sorry.
only 9 months.
You're right, I'm sorry. You're
I'm
right.
just assuming they're going to take possession of the buildings in the first 9 months. Kiosks may not happen until, you know, the next budget cycle.
Actually, I had a real good idea on the kiosks, is that we can get portable kiosks that, maybe Public Works can help us with, that we can move around. So,
Well,
there's
but
some good ideas on kiosks. that you don't know about.
Most people that have a quote kiosk on the pier bring their own tent.
Yeah.
You know, and they just bring their wagon full of their wares and their table and they set it up under a tent, just like they do on Surfside Drive. We don't have to build anything along the pier. We just have to designate, and you know, it might be a matter of tape or paint that says, this is kiosk 1, 2, 3, 4 out, you know, where they're allowed to go. And, you know, say, and I just remember Phil Jackson was the first one on the opening bids, but he comes, he says, all right, I want one every day of every week from June to whatever. So we say, okay, you're in kiosk space number 4. And, you know, he's just there every day, whatever he has to do to be there, whether that's a tent or whether, we might decide to build certain lean-to kind of structures for shade for those that we know will be there permanently, quote, permanently. But there's nothing that says we're doing that now. They can bring a tent. They can bring their table and chairs and just set up like they do on Surfside Drive. That constitutes a kiosk that they will pay the fee for. So I don't think we need to make rocket science out of this right now. Our bigger issue is getting the buildings done and getting the design for the final structure done and coordinate what that's going to be. Because right now we need to run more power and probably another water line, if not a drain line out there. And if we don't get that in the design and on the plans right now, it's going to be too late.
Yeah, I met with them yesterday, the engineers, the construction, the engineers, the construction contractors, and the architect. We did a walk through the pier, and we have discussed all that, and they are going through the process because you're 100% right. If we get it done and we don't have all that stuff set up, it's going to be a lot more expensive than making sure it gets done now.
Well,
To include whatever we're gonna build at the bottom, so.
yeah, we've been very
Yeah.
short-sighted on what was developed as this quote design. We've missed, and in the process, we've also missed some significant opportunities for revenue sources by just bringing the Cathedral Peaks down to a more normal roof pitch, and we could have had full second stories on 3 buildings to be leased out as additional space. So we've been very short-sighted on how we've been managing this project. And I think we've got a clear direction and an opportunity here. And I would certainly hope we don't lose this one again, like we have all the others that have been presented to us.
Okay, so in synopsis, Diana, you, Bill, and Cindy are going to meet like Monday or sometime around that.
Or
And then after
Tuesday or
that,
whatever, yeah.
we'll put it together again to.
Our problem is, if we're gonna have first reading on the 24th, we have to put the public notice in the paper on Monday. So I have to know, which fees are we gonna do? Because that we have to advertise. The numbers in the public hearing we can change, but I have to know what fees you want to change.
I would recommend all the fees that are.
Yeah.
It's just the new fees. The public hearing is only on the new fees. So that would be the merchant fee, the fire inspection fee, and then the special event fees.
My personal opinion, I would delete the merchant fee and just change the rates.
I would go along.
I would change what we charge for things instead of adding a merchant fee.
If you do away with the merchant fee, make sure you bring the other fees up to make up for it. I mean, at least it's not hitting them twice in one.
We can't raise business license because we just changed them. So that can't be until next year. So Sabrina's are the biggest fees after that. We can change the merchandise. We can change the merchandise fees.
So it's, okay, that's the fee, that's it.
Okay.
And then we're not really losing.
So
How many
the,
contractors pay with credit cards? All of them?
pretty much.
Okay.
And the one was one that we came in the other day, he would have paid a $70 fee.
Yeah, and they're not.
He
voting
would
on
have
it.
been ballistic at us.
Administrator up
Right,
on these
right.
fees.
Yeah, I would just raise them all by 3.5% and call it a day.
All the permit fees.
Everything. It make up for the loss.
I mean, if most people pay, if we were talking 30% of people actually pay by credit card, I'd say, okay, don't do the full 3.5 because it'll all even out in the wash. But if virtually everybody pays by credit card, then yeah, raise them all by 3.5.
Well, no, we still get a lot of people that pay, a lot of them pay by check. I mean, there's not a lot. It's almost why it's only $7,000 the fees we're paying. It's really not. It's just the
Well, the
resident
contract,
that comes in and wants the $5 cup and you're going to tell them, oh, you got to pay 3.5% on the $5 cup. It's just,
Well, I agree. Just like when you go to a restaurant and they want to hit you on your credit card for a 3.5% charge or whatever percentage they want to go up. I'd rather just go ahead and charge me an extra 50 cents for the meal or extra $1 for the meal and be done with it.
well, we'll look this afternoon and see which ones are the biggest. Because really it's the contractors that come in, but then a lot of them are writing checks so too. So I think they're getting stuck everywhere they go. So. All All right, we'll look at it. And then Robert's fees for special events. That's the only other thing that's new. They're not really, well, they're new because they're for a specific event. So in that case, I go on the side of caution for the public hearing that now you're charging it for this event, it's X, and for this event, it's Y. So that it's not just, because everything used to be, it was $25. But I think now he's got more specific.
So you've got what you need now in
I
order
do that,
to put it-
except, yes, all right, let's see, what else do I need? We're all right with American Rescue Community? Did I put it in that other fund?
Yeah,
And it's gonna
put
be.
it in capital.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna use it for facilities, and you can change that. Remember, the whole deal with this is you need to have a balanced budget and it has to be approved. You can change it July the 1st and turn it upside down and inside out. But this keeps council legal.
Right.
For having this done. I mean, nothing's in stone. We don't know anything that's gonna be different, that won't be different by tomorrow. So,
Well, it depends on which way the economy goes, too.
I'm sorry?
Which way the economy goes.
Well, no, I think, and we are very, very
It
good.
looks good now.
This year's gonna be a good year. Next year, we'll see.
Well,
That's my prediction.
Well, we need to plan for next year.
Yeah, and that's the truth.
Prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Yes.
Well, one of the things I would point out to all of you, since you're all here, is to look at page 5. And you can go to the very, very last line, which is all the expenditures, and this is just general fund. This is the money that comes in from your taxes. And you can look at, start at the left column, 7,000,007, 6,000,006, 9,000,004, 8,000,007. See, the expenses just keep going up, which of course we know they're going to. They're going up by healthcare, electricity, everything. So I mean, everything, gas.
He's paying, what would you say? Diesel, you're paying $5 a gallon now?
We're paying this week 509, 507,
And what was the budget for this year for gas? It was like,
the mid three.
Yeah, military.
Yeah.
It's went up 56 grand.
I mean.
That's what I'm saying. We need to
Yeah,
start looking at that.
You
stuff.
are, you are.
And if we gotta make
100% right.
cuts, I'd rather make cuts now than you come back and it's really bad now.
Yeah,
Well, I
I'd rather
know
make
that.
cuts now, then you come back and say it's not as bad and we can put money back in.
yeah.
Well, but I think that's also why we need to consider taking care of our employees, because they are also our biggest assets. You
Well-
know, giving them, you know, compressing their their salary within their band of their job, you know, and they're not keeping up with inflation either.
Well, one suggestion would be to give them a bonus because we wouldn't have to pay retirement on it, which is a plus for us, the 21%. And it gives them cash in their pocket to go out and buy the gas or pay the rent or wherever they are. I mean, it's an option rather than, since we haven't decided on the merit or had, you know.
Well, and
It's
that's
just
an
an
option
option.
in the merit raise program, would be to give a lump sum instead of an incremental increase.
Well, 1% won't cover it.
Yeah, that, I mean, but you still have to set aside in the budget, you know, whatever that number is. Is it a 1% or is it a 2% or whatever that budget to allow your department heads to say, okay, here we are in October and it's evaluation time. So, you know, Chief Hoffman, he got all 5. So, you know, we're going to give him that 39 cent an hour raise, you know,
Right.
but whatever. Or we're going to give him that $1,000 lump sum, but that's still got to be in the budget that to allow those expenses to be incurred is all I'm saying.
Well, it's not, and 1% isn't enough, so we would have to come up with a different number. But I'm saying for right now, we had thought about doing the merit, and my understanding is we don't finalize that. My suggestion would be for right now, it's about $90,000 to give people a, you know, just give everybody a bonus for right now, and that would kind of tide. Most people are hurting right now because of everything going up so badly.
Well, we talked and to give everybody let's just say $1,000 raise. It's not in
Bonus or
perpetuity
raise?
like it would be
Bonus.
if we gave them something else. So the question is, can we see what the advantage is to the employee on giving them $1,000 cash now or 3% over a year? I think that the $1,000 is something they can spend right now.
Correct.
And isn't something that.
And it's not going to hurt us go forward, because if you
Right,
give them
and,
the.
and we're
3%
not
rate-
committing ourselves, because if the economy does take a dump next year, you know, we're still having to pay that in our salaries.
Well, you're not going to have to, because those employees aren't going to stay here. I mean, pretty soon, if you don't start allowing your employees to progress up in their band, to penetrate further in their salary band, then they're gonna start looking for jobs, because as the years go by, that's getting smaller and smaller for them, because they came in at 25%. All they've got is COLA increases. In the new band, they're probably at 22%. And by the third year, they're probably down at 21% of their band. So they're not even maintaining their penetration in the band when the band moves just as much as, it moves just as much as their salary does. So you keep compressing them down, pretty soon you got your 25-year experienced guy being paid less than what a guy coming in is going to be paid. So if you don't have some way to increase their salary, and I understand that that also increases pension liability, but you're not going to keep good people working here because you're not taking care of your high performers. If you have a high performer and they actually are able to penetrate further into their salary band, they're less likely to leave. And that is your asset that will make this town successful and overcome the bad reputation we continue to have on Facebook.
Well, we took the compensation study out of this budget, just so you're aware of that.
I don't think we need to spend millions of dollars on a compensation study. I mean, I'm sure you can go to the municipal association and say, okay, give me the salary bands for all of these kind of jobs. And we can look at, this is what they say, this is what ours is. Yeah, we're out of whack. No, we're good. I don't think we need to pay millions for somebody else to do that.
You're right. We can get that information for governments the same size we are. So yes, we can do that.
I think Horry County just did one. You probably want to take a look at that one, but I was just a point of information if you didn't notice that I had removed it.
I agree. I don't think we need that.
So American Rescue Care, we're okay. I'm going to put the fees in. We're taking out the merchant
Add the
for this
fishing.
time. And
Well, fishing doesn't change, right? It was $950.
I don't even know.
I would just put it on the list. It doesn't have to go to the public hearing if it's not changing, but to be complete, I'd put it on the list.
Well, what about admissions? Because that was a fee we used to charge.
Well, I think the discussions past council, and I believe this council has had, was the addition of the kiosks and the additional building space offsets the necessity for a walk-on fee.
All right, so we're going to remove that. And we're going to fix the admission. Okay.
And it's going to be hard to do a walk-on fee if you're not doing that full year round. So if we're only doing it 9 months that the businesses are going to be open, I think the businesses are going to, when they do their lease agreement at 45, let's say they pay 45, that's a yearly lease. That's not a 9-month lease.
Yeah, but they're gonna be open the whole time, Bob. It's just the time frame from
Well-
October, if they open in October.
Right.
They may
The
not
rest of
be
the year.
open, but they are going to be paying their lease fees.
Right.
But what I built in, the numbers that I gave you was for 9 months.
Right.
$45 a square foot per year. But,
Nice would be up
divided by 12 times 9 for only 9 months worth of revenue.
So do we need to put kiosk fees in this fee schedule, or is that just going to be later? When you said what's going to be out there? And that's why I just left it open-ended.
We haven't figured out what that's
Right.
going to be yet, so let's,
Yeah, that we can
I didn't know
just
if you had
do.
already had that information.
To get people to tell you what the kiosk fees are.
Well, I looked it up. I did a Google search of what kiosk fees are, but most of it is in, like shopping malls, like the kiosks in the middle of the mall. But a lot of those are several $100s a year, and I think just a little bit more of a Google search and evaluation of square footage of the kiosk, maybe anticipated foot traffic or whatever components you put in there. We need to be able to tell them, this is what we want.
Yeah.
This is what our contract is for you to be on our pier. And then if they don't like that, then you negotiate what they want. But if we just say, yeah, we want somebody on our pier and we don't tell them, here's what our fees are, here's what our contract terms are, you know, here's what we want you to commit to this amount of time. Of course, they're not going to tell you. Why would they tell you? I mean, because they're just going to shoot themselves in the foot. If you can't tell me what it is, I tell you, I'm willing to pay that. You know, they're not going to go out on a limb and say, you know, I mean, how many car dealerships do you go into and you have to tell them what you're willing to pay for the car? Not a one.
So we're only going to add fishing fees. That's the only one. The rest of it, you're going to decide when you get closer to the pier. Is that correct?
Well, because the kiosk won't necessarily be fees, but will be lease
Yeah,
agreements.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that'll be interesting because if someone's there for 2 days a week, then you want someone else in there for the other 3.
Well,
I mean, so it, we'll
but
figure it
again,
out.
they all need to sign the lease agreement with the liability insurance and all the rest of it, because they are leasing space on public property. So it still has to be some kind of lease agreement with our standard terms and conditions, with what our fee schedule is, et cetera.
Yes.
And if they have a space where it's double wide, their fees, you know, their lease rate's going to be more than somebody that's just, you know, a 10 by 10 tent or
Yeah.
whatever. But until we know what that looks like going out the pier, we can't estimate that.
Let's go for it.
I'm ready.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
what are we doing for the rest of this month? 30 days, not quite 25 days for in May that you got this year to spend money in the budget that for this year. Is there extra money that we can spend out now to help us out? I mean, we haven't talked about that, but not every budget's going to be spent fully.
So wait, what's your question?
Is
What
there
do we-
money
when do you-
left, is there money left in
Left
last
over.
year's budget?
Probably so. What we normally do is as we get closer, we tell people to, whatever we can to move it to this year because we know where we stand. I haven't done April yet. I'm still stuck in March, but it would appear to me at this point, we're just waiting for some moving parts with the pump and some other things to happen, but I think most of that we'll know. There probably is going to be some, not excess, I won't say excess, extra money. And that's why I'm saying, could we do could we do a bonus for them? I think we probably could,
That's what I mean, yeah.
if that's where you were
Some of
going.
that can be handled right now, because I know how budgets are. You always, this time of year, they always go in and say, okay, where are you gonna be? And you know, I've had to do that.
Spend it or lose it.
Yeah.
Well, most
no, the one thing-
jurisdictions will freeze their budgets in April so that nobody goes and spends.
Well, that's true, but business license is coming in right now, and we will know what those final numbers are at the end of this week to see what we brought in more than we thought we were gonna bring in, or how that's gonna be. But they were due on Monday, but they're still coming in, so
And I
we'll
would
know that
say
by the end of the week.
Your department head do know. Get to the end of the year and say, oh, let's buy stuff so we'll have money. They know they're not gonna be punished because they managed the budget well. You know, if you don't need it this year and you do need it next year, well, guess what? You need it next year. So they understand when they're making those decisions, they're not just buying things to spend money. If they need it, they're gonna get it. They don't wait. Just go ahead, John. I'm sorry, man.
Have on a separate issue we didn't discuss yet, since you're all here. I brought it up to Bill and Diana yesterday with the problem of the supply chain of getting things right now with vehicles and equipment and stuff like that. What I would really like to do is, if council is okay with the list of capital items of equipment that we're going to be in the budget, even though we haven't had a first and second reading yet, if it would be okay with council, if I could start getting my POs and get these things ordered in the production queue, because some of the things are taking a year to turn around sometimes, but even something as simple as a pickup truck could be 9 or 10 months. So my goal is to get them in the fiscal year that they're budgeted for. So I'll have a much better chance of doing that if I can get my POs issued. And I don't think Diana's got a problem with that, as long as because we're not actually spending the money until the fiscal year. So I'd like to get some sort of a blessing to go ahead and get the process started on some of these. If the budget is okay as far as the capital is concerned with council, and you might need another meeting to decide that, or you could decide it now. But I really appreciate a little, just a little head start on the procurement process, because the way things are right now is very difficult. Manufacturers aren't making what they were making. Computer chips are a problem. It's a nightmare. So just my 2 cents.
And my suggestion would be to wait for first reading and then, just get it approved then. Because we come back for first reading, which is not the next meeting, but the one after. I can tell you a few things. I can tell you where we are at the end of April. I can tell you how much business license came in, whether we have money for that, where this thing is going to hopefully shoot out. We also have to do a budget amendment for the American Rescue money because it has to be put into a different fund. So I'm going to have to do a budget amendment for that. So we got a few things,
Yeah, well,
things.
it'll still
And I
buy
think
me a
that would be
month
part of it. That would give you a
ahead of
month,
June
John.
30th. So I take it if I can get it. So
Okay.
bear that in mind. Thank you.
Is there anything else we need to speak about today? Okay, I guess with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn this budget workshop.
If any of you have any questions, please feel free to come see me.
Anybody second it?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.